Hello, my name is Dr. Jim Doty, and I'm the host of the Into the Magic Shop podcast, where we explore the mysteries of the brain and the secrets of the heart. Well, Amandine, it's so wonderful to have you on the Into the Magic Shop podcast. And just to let our listeners know, we've been friends for a while now. How long? We met with Sri Sri Ravi Shankar.
Yes, and with Amma,
and
like
with
a decade ago.
Yes, but I think we've also been together with the Dalai Lama. And
Indeed.
Who else? A lot of different interesting folks. And
Yes.
It's always been a joy and a pleasure to hang out with you. But I think for our listeners, you have this incredible background, not only as a human rights lawyer, but in some ways an adventurer. You've had extraordinary experiences around the world, Afghanistan, Haiti, Africa, and also some people use the term seeker in the sense of trying to understand our place in the world and also connect with our consciousness. And this has resulted, obviously, you're like me, in that we have found people who we admire sort of their own path and have learned from them. And so we're going to talk about all of that stuff and how you finally, though, ended up in Mallorca, which I'm interested in that even. So, so maybe you can actually maybe give a little bit of background about your family growing up. Because, you know, I know you met the Dalai Lama when he came to your university when I think you were 18. But what was your background that actually contributed to who you are today in the sense of, and we'll talk about it, this exploration in the path of Ella Maillart?
Yes. Well, it's a real honor to speak with you today, Jim. I really appreciate interviewing me today. And so my background, very simple. I'm French, Polish. My mom was born in Poland, and she has to flee the country under communist regime. And she was a small refugee outside Paris. And when she grew up, she was very attracted by human rights and democracy. And when I was a small girl, my mom was dropping me to every Amnesty International gathering, saying that I need to write to the prisoner because they need a better life. And they brought me to Poland when I was 12, and it was under communist regime. And my grand uncle and aunt were medical doctor, but living in a small flat with ratio ticket for meat. And they say, you are very lucky. You were born in democracy. And I do believe that they sow the seed of democracy within myself and the seed of human right. And my dad is French, from a winemaker family in Burgundy. And he love traveling. So when I was a small girl, we didn't have chance. He has an RV, and we were traveling in all the road of Europe and around the world just to discover new country, new tradition, new culture. And so I decided to become a journalist, to travel the world. And for that, I wanted to study law before, to join the journalism school. And so indeed, when I studied law, His Holiness the Dalai Lama came to my university. And and he spoke about the violation of human rights in Tibet. And I was so fascinated by what he was describing, actually, and so much compassionate as well, because I remember he was telling how the Chinese were going in all the monastery and nunnery and putting some missiles in the vagina of a nun. It was a horrible description. I still remember now. But what I do remember, when he came into the room, I was sitting among all the Tibetan monks, and as you can see, I do not look like a Tibetan monk. And so the organizer at the event said, you should better go to your seat. But the monk checked my ticket, and she said she's at the right seat, so she should better stay. So when His Holiness came to the room, he went to just say hello to all the monks. And when he saw me in the middle, he said, ho, 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 ho. And he gave me a blessing, as you know. And the blessing was kind of an empowerment for me, because I realized that all his talk on human rights was indeed exactly what I was looking for in my life, which means a cause for me to be more leading to service to the humankind. And when he described the violation of human rights in Tibet, I decided that this is what I want to do in my life, actually. Become a human rights lawyer, join United Nations, and if possible, bring back the Dalai Lama to Tibet, which is completely a crazy dream. But at least he gave me direction into my studies, actually, to study and to join United Nations.
No, that's fascinating. So I know that you wrote your, I guess your senior thesis on the Panchen Lama? And so I assume that was after you met His Holiness and part of your exploration of human injustice or violation of human rights.
Yes, indeed. So after meeting His Holiness, I decided it was time for me to visit him in his village in Dharamsala in Himachal Pradesh in India, where I know you've been. And when I met him again in his temple there was this poster, and it was like a small Gendum Choekyin Nyama, the youngest prisoner in the world, the Panchen Lama, kidnapped by the Chinese at the age of 5. And it was written, wanted. And I look at the poster and I say, how come I study human rights and I never ever heard about him? And during the night, I had a dream where His Holiness came to come talk to me, and he said, it's time to investigate about the Panchen Lama. Go back to France and write your political science thesis on the topic, which I did. And investigating on this topic opened me the world to all diplomacy, the ambassador, Tibetan ambassador in Paris, the lawyer on this case in Washington, D.C., the photographer, Olivier Folmy, who was photographing Dalai Lama, completely a range of fascinating people. And I realized this is what I've been looking for. And I wrote my political science thesis. I bet I received a high honor. And I joined a master degrees in international relations in order for me to join United Nations and to work on peacekeeping operation around the world.
So where does the becoming a lawyer connect to all of this?
Well, actually, I didn't want to become a lawyer. I became a human rights specialist, where I'm sure that at least the human rights of every single being I will meet on my way in the world will be respected. I believe it's like a divine right that everybody should have a roof, eat properly, in a clean environment, because I was lucky enough to be born in the democratic countries, and I felt very unfair to see this injustice into the world.
Well, it's interesting, and it's sad, though, that even in democracies, there is significant injustice. I mean, I'm sure in France and many other places, what we call democracies that support human rights, we still have children who are hungry and homeless people. And in many ways, it's quite embarrassing, I think. Oftentimes, we attribute this to poor countries or lack of resources or lack of education or lack of political stability. But here in some of the most advanced democracies, we have yet to solve that problem.
Indeed. I have nothing else to add. It's a fact. What else can I say? It's actually, I work around the world for 23 years in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Central Africa, in Congo, in Haiti. And at the end, when I come back to my own countries, I say, well, I could have stayed here and just work on all these refugees coming from Middle East, But I needed to go all around the world to figure out that indeed it's happening in my own country.
Well, yeah, no, I think I can certainly appreciate that, and oftentimes it seems much more stark in other countries, third world countries, and the imperative seems stronger oftentimes. Well, going from your reasonably comfortable life and France. So how did you end up connecting with Ella Maillart, and what took you on that journey? Because I think in some ways, now obviously you've explained a lot by telling us about your background, because right off the bat, your family was open to other cultures, other opportunities, wanted to learn about the world, which I think is so important to remove prejudices that many people have, and to make all of us realize that everyone else is like us. They want the same things as we do. They want shelter, they want security, they want to be fed, they want to worship the way they choose to worship. And so it's very eye-opening. But to have that gift as a child, I think, of course, then allows you sort of to no longer be afraid of the unknown. And so, again, tell me how that interaction, because I think she was alive and you communicated with her, but unfortunately she passed at some point.
Indeed. Well, so as you can see from my dad, he sowed the seed of exploration, of adventure within myself. And when I decided to take the career of being a lawyer and study law, which is very dry study, I was feeling more attracted by the dryness of a desert than the dryness of a civil code, obviously. And I was just like waiting the time where I can get out of my university and just start traveling. And one day I went to a book fair in Bordeaux where I did study. And a friend of mine introduced me to her aunt, and she has a photography gallery in Bordeaux, and she was exhibiting a picture of Ella Maillart, which I never ever heard before. She was a Swiss adventurer. She traveled in China, in Afghanistan, in Russia during 1930s. So she was kind of a pioneer because she was traveling on her own. And when I look at all the picture of this woman, I say, you know what, this is the type of life I want. I'm just tired of being a student of law. I mean, I have to say, I love the mission of human rights, but I didn't like to study too much. It was too dry, especially the civil law, the private law. I was more international law, but at the beginning, in your courses, in your curriculum, you don't choose. So it was public finance or stuff like that. I didn't like it at all. So I say, maybe I should stop everything, take my backpack, and go on the footsteps of this woman. And my girlfriend, she said, but she's still alive. You can meet her. I say, oh, really? How old is she? She's 94. I said, give me your number. I'm going to meet her. And I felt a little bit shy. So I decided I'm going to read all her book first, prepare kind of an interview, and go and meet her in a small chalet in Switzerland. But it took me like almost more than a year to do that. And finally, when I was ready, I contacted her and she said, yeah, sure, come for Easter in my chalet and I will be more than happy to meet you. And I remember at this time I was a student in Bilbao in Spain. I did an Erasmus exchange and to the University of Law in Spain. And I received a call from a friend of mine in Paris. She said, look, on the front page of Le Monde, it's written she passed away today. And I was devastated. I say, that's the best lesson she gave it to me. Never wait in your life. I could have really met her a year or 2 years before, but I wanted to be perfectly ready. And at the end, I lost this huge, amazing opportunity to meet this most famous Swiss adventurer. And again, during my dream, she came in my dream and she said, I'm sorry I met you physically in this material world, but you can still meet me another way, which means all the questions you prepare to ask me, you can answer to the question if you take your backpack and go back to all the country where I used to travel 70 years ago and compare what I've changed. Like that, I will be with you and we will have a conversation, kind of. And I was sad and very excited by the way that she opened me the way of adventure and exploration. And I said, this is what I need. So I wrote a big proposal. I sent it to Paris, to an organization for adventure and exploration. And not only I received 1 grant, I received 6 grants from different organizations to do the trip. So I was super excited, but at this time, after my study in Spain, I studied political science, and I have studied master degrees in international relations. So I was kind of postponing my trip, where one day I received a call from the organizer. I said, well, if you don't do the trip, give back the money. And I said, no, I do want to do it. Let me finish my master degrees. So when I finally finish my master degrees, I have to do 6 months internship with United Nations in a country. And I said to my director, well, I should better apply in a country where Ella Maillart used to travel. Like that, I will start my trip. So I applied to all the UNICEF organizations in Central Asia, in Uzbekistan, in Tajikistan, in Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan. And his Uzbekistan office replied to me, say, we take you for 6 months to implement a well-being program for kids. So I was super excited because I said, well, at least finally I can start my trip on the footsteps of Ella Maillart, which I did. I shifted organization. I went to UNICEF organization in Tajikistan at the time where all the Taliban were coming on the north of Afghanistan, pushing away all the population to the Tajik border, and the poor people were crossing the Amu Darya River and end up of 2 islands full of mine and Kalashnikov from the Taliban on the other side. And my boss at this time said, I can see you are a photographer. Could you come with us? We are going to bring them some tent, some vaccination, some food to the refugees. We need to do a fundraising for them. And when I came there, I was very, very scared because, of course, in one side is the Russian tank of the Tajik border. On the other side is the Kalashnikov AK-47 from the Taliban. And in the middle, all the landmine. And I have to tell you, it was another eye-opening. After meeting the Dalai Lama was a breakthrough for me because it opened me to the world of Tibet and the human rights. But when I met these refugees on this island, I really opened me to Afghanistan because I felt I was going to hell and I went to paradise. And I went to paradise just for the kindness and the generosity of these Afghan people. They have nothing and they give you everything. But not only that, the way they stand, like they don't show us the suffering on their face. It's just like so resilient, so courageous, so noble. And I finished this trip and I asked myself, but who are these super powerful, incredible, extraordinary people? And I realized that Ella Maillart went to Afghanistan twice, actually, to do some archaeological research and to travel just before the Second World War. And I say, I'm going to add Afghanistan to my trip on a footstep. And I decided to fly to Afghanistan during my holidays. And even I was about to fly with the Commander Massoud, the one fighting the Taliban, because he was our neighbor in Dushanbe, Tajikistan. But my boss said, you're completely crazy. You are still under United Nations rules. If you never come back from Afghanistan, it will be my own responsibility. Well, I say, he speaks French and it's my holiday. And he refused. And I was so pissed off, but I resigned. I took my backpack and I say, if you don't want me to go to Afghanistan from Tajikistan, I'm going to go to Afghanistan from Pakistan on the footsteps of Ella Maillart. And which I did, because in any case, I needed to do a trip because, as I mentioned to you, the organization said give back the money otherwise. So I was like running out of time. And it was the best adventure of my life. Why? Because it's always like that. When you step out of your comfort zone, this is where magic happens. And it was a very spiritual and magical trip. Why? Because Ella Maillart was just guiding me on the way, just like holding my invisible realm. So much magic happened, so much incredible encounter happened on my way. In Kyrgyzstan, I met this amazing nomadic woman speaking French, guiding me to all the yurts where her uncle were living with the horses. And we crossed all Kyrgyzstan, Issyk Lake by horse with her, exactly like Ella Maillart used to do. In Xinjiang, in China, I crossed the Taklamakan Desert in sidecar motorbike with a Uyghur, and I end up discovering that this guy was the great-great-great-grandson of the governor of Kashgar, the one who received Ella Maillart. and Peter Fleming
Wow.
by canal. Like, how is it possible? How many billion of Chinese, you know? After I take a bus, I go to Karakum Highway, I go to Hunza Valley in Pakistan. The guy next to me is asking me why I'm going to Pakistan. I explain I'm on the footsteps of Ella Maillart and I want to meet the small prince Karim Ran. I'm just wondering if he's still alive because he was 3 years old when she visits the family. And he said, of course, he's still alive. I'm going to play golf with him tomorrow. You know, like so much coincidence. It's like, how is it possible? So I meet him and I've been receiving his fortress in Hunza Valley, Gilgit. It was so much encounter like that. And I end up by chance in Afghanistan on September 11, invited by the Taliban because I did apply for a visa. And when they saw my name is Amandine Roche. But when the Taliban deputy minister of foreign affairs saw my name, he said, you don't need a visa, you are already Afghan. And I say, how can you say that? He said, because you are Amandine Roche. And I say, what does that mean? He said, well, Aman means peace, Jin means religion, Roche means joy. So you are a happy protector of peace. And this is what we need more than ever now. So you are being sent by Allah. This is a sign of a divine, and you will be our honor guest. You will be our Mermon. So we want to send you some protection because we are scared for you to travel in our country. And so I went with the director of French Islands. We crossed all Afghanistan for 10 days on September 11th, which is completely a crucial time for visiting Afghanistan because, of course, it was at the time of the World Trade Center. It was at the time where the Taliban assassinated the commander Massoud. So we have two options, keep on traveling or going back to Pakistan. We decided to postpone our trip to the maximum time we could. But at the end, the Pakistani closed the border and we have to negotiate our release because we were stuck at the border. And anyway, it was so much dramatic and also so sad to see all these Afghan people fleeing the country, scared of the American bombing. And so finally, when I went back to Pakistan at the border, there was this small girl asking me to save her. And I couldn't save her because I have to adopt her if I save her. So I have to let her at the border. But again, in my dream, the small girl came back to me and she said, why you didn't save me? And it was an opening up to my consciousness on the condition of the women and girls in Afghanistan. And I have to, like a catharsis, you know, like it was such a nightmare. I was waking up every night at 4 a.m. and her face was coming to me, say, why you didn't save me? And I have to write her a letter, say, my small barefoot Afghan princess, I'm very sorry. I couldn't help you. I couldn't adopt you, but I promise I will come back. And I will come back to work for your sister, your mother, your aunt, all the women. And I got it. I understood that I wanted to work for peace. I wanted to work for human rights. I wanted to work for democracy. But I understood at this time it was passing through the woman. And this girl opened up my consciousness. I understood why afterwards she came into my life. So I went back, finished the footsteps of Ella Maillart, Pakistan, India, Nepal, Tibet, China, Russia with the Trans-Siberian, going back to Ukraine, all Poland, Switzerland in the chalet of Ella Maillart, and France. And France, I wrote my book, I published my book, I received all the best prize. It's a very best-selling book. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was my first book. I was just 28 at this time. And everybody were asking me what you do next. I said, well, I go back to Afghanistan to do what? To empower women. It was very clear. I wanted to be part of a peace and democratic process. So I organized a scientific and cultural expedition with all my friends. We took 10 cars, 2 motorbikes, and we drove to Kabul, crossing all Italy, Greece, Turkey, Iran, and we end up in 2003, September, in Afghanistan, Kabul. And I joined United Nations immediately after. I became the head of a civic education program, And my job was literally to train civic educators to do doors-to-door campaign, bring back all the women out of their house because they were so scared of the Taliban regime, so scared that they didn't want to go back to their normal life and be a doctor, be an engineer, be a teacher. So we were trying to cast all these women to become civic educators and also to train them to go into the political life, to become a minister, to become a senator, to become a deputy. So we were giving back to the woman. And when I did the job, I love it so much. I understood this is what I've been looking all my life.
Wow. So, I mean, that's an amazing story. But a couple things, and I affected you and traumatized you, and I think impacted your path. True?
Yes, indeed. Because it's like you are so much passionate by your fire, but at the end, your fire burns you and burns your wings, kind of. And this is exactly what happened. As much as I love Afghanistan, I consider Afghanistan as my best master because we were threatened by the Taliban. Taliban didn't like our job, didn't like the fact that we were empowering women, so we were the first target. So we have colleagues who died, who passed away. We were under bombing, we were under death threat. And at the end, 3 of my international colleagues got kidnapped in front of my office. And United Nations asked me to go back to France and evacuate me out of the country, scared that I might be kidnapped as well for the work I've been doing. And I came back to France completely broken, completely depressed, with the beginning of a stomach cancer, which at the end I didn't know, but I put so much stress on my body that it took me years to recover. I didn't want to take some chemotherapy to start to heal the cancer in my stomach. Instead, I decided to go on Ayurveda. So for 6 months, I went to see an Ayurvedic healer. Ayurveda is ancient medicine from India, where it's go on massage and on herbs to cool down my belly, because I was looking like a 3 months pregnant woman, and I was not pregnant, but just I couldn't digest anymore what I went through. So my body were kind of somatized. And after 6 months, I finally recovered. And United Nations asked me to go back to Afghanistan. And I meditate and I say, maybe not, because the Ayurvedic healer say, you cannot go back to Afghanistan unless you learn how to meditate, because your body has been like a sponge. You are an empath person. So you bring light, but you absorb all the darkness. And at some point, you cannot digest it anymore. And I say, well, maybe he's right. So when United Nations called me back to go back to Afghanistan, I was a little bit scared, because I said, I will end up exactly in the same, and I'm going back with my stomach cancer again. So I say, who can teach me meditation? And I realized, well, of course, the Dalai Lama, because I remember he's a Tibetan spiritual leader. So I decided to take my backpack, go back to Dharamsala, not for human rights this time, just to become a student of the Dalai Lama in Mahayana, in Gelugpa, Tibetan Buddhism. And every morning at 6 a.m., I was going in the temple with my blanket, because it was during winter, receiving all the teaching of His Holiness and learning the Tibetan meditation. And at some point in his course, he said, and you cannot bring peace on the world if you don't bring peace within yourself first. And it was a big breakthrough for me, because I realized that I was completely destroyed, completely broken, completely burned out, exhausted, tired, and stressed. And United Nations wanted still me to work with them, where I have nothing else to give, instead my depression. And I say, who I am to work for peace in the world if I'm not peace with myself first? I'm a fraud. And I realized that I have to be in alignment with what I want to preach. First, bring back the peace within myself. And I took my backpack and I went all around India to meet spiritual masters who teach inner peace and non-violence, because I was a big fan of Gandhi. You can see Gandhi is here in front of me, always on my desk. And it's been a big inspiration all my life. So I went to Gandhi ashram in Sevagram. I took the non-violence vows: no kill, no lie, no take any intoxicant, no have any sexual misconduct, to actually bring the non-violence within myself. I study as well with Karmapa. I took my Bodhisattva vows. I took refuge with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And I met Goenka and I learned Vipassana. Vipassana did change my life forever. I finally met my monkey mind, who jump in the past, jump in the future, who doesn't want to be here and now, but here and now, this is where there is peace. So Vipassana helped me tremendously on my path to peace, that I decided afterward that meditation and yoga will be my daily practice from now on. And I finally met Amma, who actually helped me to heal my body and give me back hope into humankind with all the service she's doing for the world, and make me back on track. And believe it or not, at the end of my journey all around India, I received a call from United Nations. Are you willing to go back to Afghanistan? And I said, nah, I'm ready. It took me time, but I'm ready because I have my practice. And when I came back, all my colleagues say, wow, you changed. There is bombing outside and you don't freak out anymore. I say, well, I do meditate, so if it's at peace inside, it's okay, it doesn't disturb my inner peace, the bombing outside. And so they asked me, well, could you teach us meditation? I say, yeah, of course. So I start to open up a center within my home, in my garden, every morning at 6 to 7 a.m. I was offering yoga and meditation class in Kabul for my colleague. But at some point, the Afghan colleagues say, we want to come as well. So more I was teaching to an Afghan colleague, I realized that they are all suffering of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, depression, and anxiety, as I did. But I realized, unlike me, they didn't have the tools to heal their PTSD. So I decided to create the Amandine Foundation to actually bring yoga meditation in Afghanistan in order to work on the mental health situation of the population. And this is how, with Raula, my friend, we opened up the Torch of Light School, where we teach to 350 kids the tools of nonviolence, also the value of nonviolence, peace education, and yoga and meditation. And more I was teaching, more I've been sent to women's shelters, I've been sent to jail, to prisoners, to Polishari, which is the jail outside Kabul only for the Taliban and for the terrorists. So I was kind of scared, but at the end, they are human beings and they really enjoy it. And I end up teaching to the Taliban. And I realized that for them, meditation was a type of a prayer, because you say, when we pray 5 times a day, it's like we connect as well to the divine, to Allah, and it brings them some meditative state. But unfortunately, after teaching for more than a year, I received a death threat from the Taliban, because one day, one of the father of a girl who is a Taliban came with a Kalashnikov, was looking for me because he said, I'm bringing Buddhism to her daughter, which is not the case. It was kind of a shortcut in their mind. Meditation, yoga means Buddhism and Hinduism. And they were scared that I do proselytism to prevent his daughter to go to Islam. So I say, well, it's time for me to move on. And I left Afghanistan.
Wow. So did you take some time off, or what was next?
Yes. Well, I realized, like everything I do, I'm so passionate and I needed a break. And I realized how traumatized I was. So I went on deep yoga meditation retreat. And during a retreat, I realized that, also I mentioned to say, while I was back in Afghanistan, 6 of my international colleagues got assassinated in Augustus by the Taliban. So again, I was traumatized again, and again, UN asked me to go out. And this time when I went out, I started to realize that not only I suffer, but all my UN colleagues suffer of PTSD, depression, and anxiety. I also faced a suicide bomber in a polling station, and I realized it was my most courageous act of resilience, facing this suicide bomber, smiling at him, to ask him to go out. It brings me so much trauma. I have so much of my colleagues who got assassinated by the Taliban. I say, it's time for me to withdraw. I moved to California, where I met you. And during my retreat in California, I met this amazing yoga teacher called Shankar. She gave me a scholarship with the yoga of the mat into the world, because she really supported my organization in Afghanistan. And during one of her retreats in Omega Institute, I say, it's time for me to do something for my colleague, the humanitarian colleague. So I decided to write a letter to Ban Ki-moon, which was my big boss at this time. And I wrote to him and I said, are you aware of the sanity and the mental health of your colleague? I mean, on the front line, in all the war zone. And if you are aware, tell me what you do for their mental health. If you are not fully aware, shall we meet? Because this is my story, and this is the story of all my colleagues. And surprisingly, 30 minutes after I received a message from his cabinet, say, come to our office right now. So I was in Boston, I took a flight, went to New York, meet Ban Ki-moon in the lift. He said, I'm sorry, I have to fly to Central Africa. There is a case of rape, but speak with Susanna Malcora, my deputy. I met for 1 hour Susanna Malcora, and she said, we are very aware of what's going on within the organization. We receive insult letter every day. We receive resignation letter every day. We don't know what to do. Well, I say, if you don't know what to do, let me tell you something. I'm fundraising in Google for my foundation in Afghanistan, Amandine Foundation. And I realized in Google, they look happier, healthier, more relaxed. And it looks like this is an amazing program called Search Inside Yourself, which brings more mindfulness, more emotional intelligence, conscious leadership, neuroscience. Why not we try to bring this type of program within the system? And say, well, go for it. Super good idea. So I went to meet, thanks to Gopi Kayalil, who you know, I went to meet Meng Shangtand, and I told him about my dream to bring his program to United Nations. And he said, well, go for it. I give you a scholarship, which I study for 1 year. After a year, UN called me to go to Haiti. So I start to teach Search Inside Yourself to my colleague in Haiti. And they say, we love it, but I feel it's not fully adapted because it's about all the CEO of Silicon Valley. We want more like Mother Teresa, or we want more like humanitarian example. And why not you bring more yoga or mental health in the curriculum? I say, you're right. So I went to see back the cabinet of Ban Ki-moon, and I say, as much as I love Search Inside Yourself, it looks like we need something more adapted to the field. I say, what do you propose? I say, I propose we create the inner peacekeeping program, where actually, because I work on peacekeeping operation around the world, why might we bring more inner peacekeeping? And where we give to the humanitarian on the front line 20 tools of inner peace to prevent depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Say, yes, go for it. I say, well, give me the money. So, well, we don't have the money. So I say, okay, I'm going to fundraise. And I went to see Lululemon in Canada, who gave me money for that. I gave the money to UN Foundation in order to design the curriculum. We hire a pool of experts on the curriculum, on mental health, psychologists, yoga meditation teacher. And at the end, we managed to bring this program into refugee camp in Mafraq and Zatari camp in Jordan with UNHCR for all the humanitarian working on the Syria refugee crisis, because they were full stress, full on PTSD. And we taught them the program during a weekend and a follow-up online for 1 month. And the results were excellent. Like, they love it so much. They start to sleep better, eat better. Some of them realized they were so much traumatized, they resigned from UN because they said we cannot do it anymore. And it was a big success, but now the program is taught all around the world.
Well, congratulations. I mean, that's incredible. And I think being able to demonstrate the power of these types of practices really is quite extraordinary. And sometimes people think that there is no resolution for their suffering. But as you've demonstrated, there is, and it works quite effectively.
Indeed.
So, what's next for Amandine? I know that you are now in Mallorca, that you are studying, and maybe you can explain it, the concept of divine feminism, and where your personal life is at this point after traveling the world in some ways on your own, alone, trying to make the world a better place. So tell me about Mallorca. And I know you've invited me many times, so I plan on coming. But tell me more. And I'm sure our listeners would sort of like to understand how it all comes full circle.
Yes, and before going to Mallorca, I just wanted to add, because I'm a humanitarian in heart, I say if this type of program work for humanitarian, why not offer that to the refugees? So I create the Inner Peace Corps organization to bring the inner peacekeeping to the refugees in Zatari and Mafraq camp. And the goal of Inner Peace Corps was to heal the invisible wound of trauma, restore human dignity, and develop joy through creativity. And it was focused only on women. Why women? Because during my healing journey from PTSD, from all these countries, I've been around the world, I was healed thanks to the plant medicine. And during a plant medicine ceremony and journey, I connected with the earth, Gaia. And she said to me, my daughter, I put you back on your throne of divine feminine for you to put all these women back on their throne of divine feminine, because the women on this planet have been abused, exploited, and raped by men as much as you have been abused, exploited, and raped by men, as much as your mother, Gaia, have been abused, exploited, and raped by men for centuries. By healing the woman, you are healing your mother, and that's your mission. So I felt like so fortunate to receive my real mission from Mother Earth, that my life took completely another stage, another direction, because I realized that traveling all around the world on 20 peace process with United Nations in the darkest zone, the conflict zone on the world, from Afghanistan to Iraq, to Libya, to Congo, to Central Africa, to Sudan, to Haiti, I was, without knowing it, unlocking the feminine power in the most fossilized patriarchy. So I was doing that just out of passion, but I realized my mission needed to go to another level. And the other level was first to reconcile the feminine and masculine within myself in order to create a sacred union, and to reach peace within, really a stage of peace, of love, of happiness, of harmony, of consciousness. And when I reach that, I can give them the tool to other women and men to reach the divine sacred union of divine masculine and divine feminine. So to answer your question, now I'm indeed in Mallorca with my husband-to-be, which is my first love for my teenager. We met again 2 years ago. We fell in love again, and we decided to settle down in Mallorca to be close to our family, but also because we love Spain. And Mallorca is a little bit like California, with the sun, with the good vibes, the good people, and good vibration and nature. And I settled on a small healing center, well-being center, creativity center called Sol de Agartha. We have a huge teepee and we organize retreat and ceremony. And I'm doing some meiotic coaching, healing session inside or online in order for people to download their soul and bring their divine gift to the humanity. So in a nutshell, this is where I am right now. So it's like the full cycle, I'm back to Europe finally after this long, long journey around the world.
Well, I have to say, you are happier than I think I've seen you ever. I mean, you seem very centered, you seem happy. And I think it's been an incredible journey. But I think so many people have benefited from your passion, your wisdom, your insights. And I think this is, if you will, the next level for you. And I think that, for so many men, we talk about divine feminine or women looking for a different definition of that which has been placed on them by either society or in some ways our evolution. But I would also suggest that there are many, many men who actually wish to go outside of the place that society or evolution has placed them to really come together to be of service without the baggage of the prejudices and biases that have unfortunately so negatively affected the world.
Indeed. And I have to say, it's not ostracism, it's not against the man, not at all. We bring the man into the equation for them to find the balance within themselves, to find their feminine and their divine masculine, And it's like same for women. But I have to say, for 2,000 years, at least, the world have been under the patriarchy energy, and we do need a lot of balance right now to bring a lot of feminine energy, which is kindness. I mean, this is all what you teach with C-Care, right? It's on compassion, it's on altruism. It's all the feminine quality of kindness, of love, of patience, of beauty. So this is what more than ever the world is needed now in order to balance with all this chaos, this conflict, this war, and this separation. We need to reach to unity. And that's why we need to counterbalance with the feminine energy. So feminine energy coming from men and from women.
I agree. Totally. And, it's such a joy to reconnect with you and to be able to spend time. And I do hope in the not too near future, or not too near future, whatever I mean, that we'll be able to see each other and hang out. And I would love to see your place in Mallorca and hang out and relax a little bit.
Yes, please come with Masha. It will be an honor.
Yes. I will do that. In fact, we're trying to plan a trip right now.
Yes.
But I've got, what do I have to do? Oh, I have to go to Belfast first, and then to the UK, and then to Amsterdam, and then I'll have a little bit of time. So we'll see if I can drop by and hang out a bit. So, well, listen, thank you so much. It's such a joy and a pleasure to be with you, and we've shared so many unique, interesting experiences for which I'm also thankful. So you take care. Much love, my dear, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Jim. It's a real honor to speak with you today.
Indeed, and my pleasure. So take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Again, thank you for being with us today. The Into the Magic Shop podcast can be found where you find your most popular podcasts, or you can find us at intothemagicshop.com.